And we are live. So hi, hello, magandang hapon, anyong, good afternoon to everyone. Welcome back to another session of Career Talk Thursdays. I'm Primsel and I'll be your host for today. So this is our 12th session of Career Talk Thursdays, and we will be talking about fresh grad job hunting guide, the things you need to prepare for before applying for a job. So for those who are looking for their jobs or future jobs, this session is for you. Especially dun sa mga fresh graduates, Gen Zs, and even young millennials na gustong maging mas prepared pa sa job hunting nila. So, before we start, I want to let everyone know that this event is hosted by Prospel Philippines. So, ano nga ba si Prospel? Prospel is a career portal and jobs board designed specifically for students and fresh graduates. We help you get the best start to your careers by providing with you all information that you need, like day in the life articles, career events such as this, and jobs that are for you. Prospel is present and is in partnership with employers across Asia Pacific region. We have Grad Australia, Grad New Zealand, Philippines, and even India, Indonesia, and Malaysia. So samahan nyo kami ngayong hapon na makipagkwentuhan kay Jonathan from IBM. And please feel free to send your questions in the chat box. And then later on, itatanong natin sa kanya kung ano yung mga sagot sa burning questions nyo. Before we begin, let me introduce first our speaker for this session. This afternoon, pinagbibigyan tayo ni Jonathan Nalundasan from IBM, and he graduated Bachelor's of Science in Psychology last 2018. And then he started working in IBM at the same time as talent acquisition for technical source as technical sourcer, sorry. Eventually he moved to campus relations hiring last 2020 up until today. So let's give him a warm welcome through chat box by giving emojis, thumbs ups, and heart. And I'll put him on the screen. So, kumusta ka naman,
Hello.
Jonathan?
Hello. Doing good. Thank you for having us, Shuntel.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm doing good and excited for today.
Oo.
Hopefully
Excited rin kami.
makakuha sila ng, ano, ng tips or
Right?
job.
So marami tayong mga viewers and siguro mga fresh graduates and students on the stream. Hello sa inyong lahat. Magsha-shout out tayo later. But at this time, I'll hand over the screen first to Jonathan so he can share yung mga fresh graduate job hunting guides and tips that you can use.
No. Sige, let me just share my screen first. Let me know from Cell if you can already see it. Uh,
Not at the
Not
moment.
yet. Hold on.
And while we're waiting, good afternoon kila Jonah, Lenny Lynn, Frances, Ja. Thank you for watching us. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat box, and then later on, we'll ask those questions.
There you go.
Ayan.
Is it visible?
Loading lang siya, but paparating na tayo sa exciting part at mag-show na siya.
Ayan. Is it okay
Ayan.
na? Visible na siya.
Yes.
Okay.
Take it away.
Okay, thank you. So, Firmcell already introduced me. Siguro, first, I would like to thank Prospel for inviting IBM to be a part of this series of activities. So, since as Firmcell mentioned, I just graduated 2018, so 4 years ago. Hopefully, I'll be able to share my experiences and what I was able to do uh, before in terms of preparing for my job hunting run. So again, I am Jonathan Nalundasan. Currently, I am a talent acquisition partner supporting campus and entry-level hiring or early professional hiring here in the Philippines. So before I proceed with the main topic for this session, I'd like to introduce who IBM is first. So first, we are a global and innovation company, global technology and innovation company. Yeah. We live at the intersection of business and technology, and today we've transitioned to a cognitive solutions and cloud platform company, transforming entire industry. So in the Philippines specifically, we're more than 80 years already, but globally, I think we're at 111 years in the industry. So if you can see or if you can check the right side of the screen, we are spread out across the Philippines, although the big chunk of it is in Metro Manila, which is in BGC in OWP. We also have an office in Eastwood City within QC, yeah. And then another office in Quezon City, which is in UP Ayala Techno Hub, and also an office in Hanston Square in Ortigas. Also, for our provincial sites, we have one in Naga and one in Cebu. In terms of the different entities of IBM, we are segmented into three or divided into three. So the first is IBM Philippines Incorporated. IBM Philippines Incorporated is one of the leading suppliers of information technology, hardware, software, and services in the country. The next is IBM Solutions Delivery. So ISD or IBM Solutions Delivery provides IT expertise, delivering world-class technology services and business solutions. And then the third one, last but not the least, of course, is IBM Business Services. So IBM Business Services or IBS is the foremost provider of business transformation outsourcing for human resources, finance and administration, and supply chain management services. So um, the next slide, I already discussed after graduation checklist. So the things that you need to prepare in order for you to be well prepared in job hunting or in finding your uh, career finding your job. So most probably I would assume the you guys or the uh, listeners or participants on this event most probably are all either graduating or recently graduating. So I'll try my best to be able to uh, provide insights or provide tips on what you need or what you would want to have uh, in or during your job hunting run. So first, I'll be enumerating the things that you need to prepare and of course how you can prepare it. Although I won't um, get into detail like from start to finish on how you can or how you would need to prepare it, but I'll give you an idea on how you can start. So first, um, what you need to do is to create a flexible career plan. It's not only helpful for you personally, but having a career plan in the future would also be an advantage during interviews because your interviewers or employers would also want to know what do you really want to achieve um, in the future or by the time that you are in the company already. So how to prepare it? Um, well, it's a long process, but siguro you can start by reflecting on your ideal goals for your career. Like siguro you could try to reflect on why did you uh, take the program in the first place. So what do you want to become uh, uh, in the future? So I actually mentioned or I included here flexible because of course, as we all know, life would always throw curveballs. And having like contingency plans like plan A, plan B, or plan C would also help you to be guided or to prevent being lost along the way. So I would recommend as well to start or to check um, if or what are your top priorities when looking for a job. Is it more on the work location? Do you really want to uh, be on a 100% work from home setup, or is it okay for you to go in the office? In terms of the work location, do you want uh, the office near to your place, or do you want, or you're open to travel? So those are the things that you need, or you would want um, provide you with viable options by the time that you will be exploring job boards or exploring um, or trying to walk in different companies. So next is to prepare for your pre-employment requirements. So usually, pre-employment requirements are being discussed or being um, asked by employers uh, only if you're on the job offer stage or if you've been offered the position. However, there are some pre-employment requirements that are quite a standard already for most companies because it would because they are your valid IDs, school credentials, and other things that you need to prepare beforehand. I put an asterisk on this because I'll be discussing more of it later. Next is your attire. What you just need to ensure that you have a decent amount of appropriate attire for the role that you're applying for or for the job that you would want to have. I included it here because we have to be honest since we're on uh, pandemic for the past couple of years. We need to restock or we need to replenish the set of our clothes in our house. So, and of course, since ayun nga, we're slowly recovering and slowly getting back to normal, it won't hurt if you will already prepare for an on-site work or a face-to-face work eventually. So next, professional photos. Although personally, I wasn't able to experience this being asked for professional photos by the companies, but based from our research, there are companies still that are requiring or requesting for professional photos from the candidates. Might be for the use of their database or eventually something within the company. And also, if hindi naman siya hingin ng company or ng employer, you could use it through your by uploading it in your portfolio or uploading it in social media like LinkedIn to have na naman to ano naman to have a decent or appropriate photo for the platform. So next is of course your resume or your CV or curriculum vitae. One thing that you would want to uh, remember is also for you to make sure to highlight the skills that are relevant to the role that you're applying for. So it's not really required for you to include everything in your CV because the CV would depend on yeah, but like what I've mentioned, the role that you are applying for. So um, it it's not actually required as well for you to indicate uh, your like your age, your birth date, unless required by the company. But you just need to keep in mind that what's the most important thing is for you to highlight the skills that you have or what can you bring to the table when you join the company. So next is character references. Although I would encourage to keep your character references first, unless otherwise required by the company. Um, but it's a good thing to have at your back pocket because there are companies who would also request for character references, um, especially if they are really into doing background checks and the like. One thing that you need to remember is that before you put people as your references, get consent from them or ask for permission so that you could provide their contact details and their name to the company that you're applying for. And of course, um, you have to be well versed or knowledgeable on the role that you'll be applying for and the company that you intend to apply for. Um, how you can do it, of course, research. Try to do research on your ideal companies, or if the company is not as important, or what's more important to you is the role, then try to research in terms of what, let's say, for example, what a software developer really do. So that if ever, hoping for the best that you get the interview, um, you could ask questions or you could ask um, uh, relevant questions for the role. Ano din yun, additional points din siya since it would create an impression to the employers that you are really interested or that you are really into the position that you're applying for. So, the next slide is more on the handy guide for your pre-employment requirement. So, we were able to come up with the three main documents that are good to have already, even if you're still looking for work. So the first is your primary IDs or your valid IDs. The primary IDs first could come into uh, this IDs or these documents. So first is your passport. Passport definitely is a primary ID. Although you first need to set an appointment at DFA, and it might take a bit or it might eat up your time. So if ever that you would want some quick wins or quickly have your IDs, I'll mention it later kung ano yung mas okay, kung ano yung mas mabilis makuha. So yeah, first passport, it's considered as a primary ID. Medyo matagal yung validity niya, 10 years. Although you need to pay fee 950 to 1,200 from the last time we checked. Although not sure now if may changes. Also, driver's license is a valid ID, a primary ID. Validity would be 5 years then, and you also need to pay a fee of 685 pesos. Although hindi pa kasama dito, I think yung mga kailangan yung exams, medical tests and all. So, also, meron din naman or you could get UMID or yung Unified Multipurpose ID. Ito yung pumalit sa SSS ID. Ito na yung pina-provide nila ngayon. Free lang siya and it's valid and it has no expiration date. So, once na makapag-create ka na ng SSS number, you need to apply for a Unified Multipurpose ID. However, same with postal ID, this will be delivered or this should be delivered to your house to validate din kung tama yung address na nilagay niyo. From the last time, I'm not sure if there have been changes in terms of their process. But yeah, it's free and it has no expiration date. The next is yung PhilHealth ID. Actually, based from experience, this is the easiest ID uh, to have. Kasi from the last time that I applied for a PhilHealth ID, what I need, what was requested from me was only a birth certificate and the application form. And then the same day, um, nakuha ko na din siya. Nakuha ko na din yung parang paper that would serve as an ID. So, palaminate nyo na lang and then, yan, pwede na siya. Pwede na siya. And then the next would be your TIN ID. TIN ID, you can request this once that you already have your tax identification number or TIN. Kailangan nyo lang din pumunta sa BIR office to fill out some forms para makreatean kayo ng TIN. Although usually, employers would process the TIN for fresh graduates or for those who doesn't have their TIN yet. Pero you could do it on your own if ano naman, if you have time to do it. Para makapag-request din kayo ng ID. Then the next would be the postal ID. Same with UMID, this should be delivered to your doorstep. Um, and it's valid for 3 years. And then you just need to pay a fee of 504 pesos. Of course, you need to go to the postal office to process. Then the next, voter's ID, just make sure that you are a registered voter in your LGU. And then PRC ID, this is if your course or your program would require you to take board exams, like for CPAs, engineers, medical technologists, physical therapists, mga ganun. Definitely, you'll be having PRC ID once that you've passed the licensure exam. So that would also serve as your valid ID. Next is yung national ID. I think the government is actively encouraging people to get their national IDs. So it's free and it doesn't have any expiration date. You just need to go to PSA or yung mga kiosks nila in groceries or in malls para makapag-apply kayo. Although I think this is also or this should be delivered to your doorstep as well. So it might take time before you can or before you'll be able to receive the ID or the card itself. So the next is the secondary IDs. This is for NBI clearance, police clearance, barangay clearance, or birth certificate. So NBI clearance, a good thing for fresh graduates or for first timers. It's free for the first time if ever that this would be your first time getting an NBI clearance. You don't need to pay for anything. You just need to book an appointment at the nearest NBI office in your area and then go there to get the clearance. So the validity is 6 months to 1 year. Usually it's 1 year. So you just need to renew then if ever kailangan nyo siya. But yeah, usually it is a requirement from the companies to provide NBI clearance. So next is police clearance. The validity is for 6 months and you just need to pay a fee of 160 pesos. And you just need to go to the nearest police station and then na yun, mapaprocess nyo din siya eventually. Next is barangay clearance. This actually varies depending on your LGU. Kung gaano katagal yung validity that they will provide and the price as well. So you just need to go to your barangay hall and process for your barangay clearance. And then, of course, birth certificate. For the IDs or for the primary IDs that I've mentioned, since most probably if you are a fresh graduate or an incoming fresh graduate, most of you won't have valid IDs yet. So it's a good thing to start with your birth certificate because, like what I've mentioned, for PhilHealth ID, what they only need is an accomplished application form and your birth certificate. So, good starting point yung birth certificate para makuha nyo na yung mga IDs na kailangan nyo. You just need to pay a fee of 330 pesos and then i-deliver din siya to your house. And then, of course, other government IDs and forms. First would be yung Pag-ibig ID. Although the ID or the ID card itself, I think, would only be available if you've already provided contributions. Although, correct me if I'm wrong. And then the BIR forms. The BIR forms that you will need to fill out in order to have your tax identification number. So next, of course, the third one is for your proof of education. So since you're a fresh graduate already, it's a good document to have already na meron na kayong transcript of records, either transcript of records, diploma, or certificate of graduation. Although some schools might not be able to provide the transcript of records or diploma right away, they might be able to provide a certificate of graduation. So it's good, it's a good document to have as well. Ayun. So after that, um, that's very short. That's very brief, and that actually concludes the guide on how you can prepare for your job hunting. Um, I would also want to share our social media sites if ever that you are interested to apply or to be a part of IBM. Here are the list of our social media sites: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also, you can explore career opportunities at ibm.com/jobs. So, if too lengthy naman, you could just scan the QR code on the right side so that you could be a part of our talent network. And then at the bottom, is we offer free learnings then or free modules at ibm.com/skills/badges. So makikita nyo dun yung list ng available learnings that you can take and eventually get a badge or a skills badge and put it in social media or in your LinkedIn profile. So that's actually all, and I'm looking forward to answer your questions in the chat. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Very practical and useful guide that you have shared with everyone in the audience. I'm pretty sure meron tayong mga students na magsa-start na din kumuha ng mga requirements na kailangan nila. I really like the idea yung having a flexible career plan because sometimes hindi lahat ng gusto natin na-achieve natin.
Yes.
So, importante na very flexible tayo and we look at other options. Ayan. So, thank you again for that great presentation. We will be asking you a couple of questions din, no? So, for those viewers na interesado pang malaman yung IBM or opportunities and even mga tips, feel free to ask those questions in the chat box and we'll have Jonathan answer them. So, while we're waiting for those questions, Jonathan, siguro yung first question ko para sa'yo is, as a fresh graduate, how to be emotionally prepared for job hunting? So, I think you started your career pretty much a couple of years ago. So, medyo fresh pa to
Yes.
sa'yo. How to be emotionally prepared for job hunting?
Well, um, eh, well, it. Mm, I hate to be a pessimist, but I think it's a good thing to be prepared for um, redirection or rejections from companies because ayun nga, like what you've mentioned and I've mentioned earlier, um, it won't always go according to plan.
Mm.
Emotionally, dapat medyo nakaset na din yung expectations natin that there will be times that my application will be rejected, and of course, may ano din naman, eventually may company that would be a fit for uh, me. So ayun,
Mm-mm.
it's not ano naman eh,
Ang ganda
parang
ng term.
redirection siya.
Oo, ang ganda ng term na ginamit mong ano, it's not a rejection but a redirection.
Yeah.
'Di ba? Kasi syempre hindi naman lahat ng gusto natin nakukuha natin just because ginusto natin siya. Pwedeng may mga other reasons like job fit or
Yes.
maybe not the skill set for you at the moment. So, baka kailangan mo pa na experience and such. So, yeah. Thank you for that question. Meron tayong question from Jehan. So sabi niya, good day, Sir Jonathan. Planning to submit my resume at IBM. O, ayan, may isa na tayong applicant. Any tips po for the interview or will there be exams for finance, accounting-related position?
Well, tips for the interview. Um, I think um, just be upfront and honest with the interviewers in terms of your expectations on the role. Since you're applying in as a fresh or coming in as a fresh graduate, um, of course they even if you're not fresh graduate naman eh, there will be questions where your motivations will be asked or what are your top motivators while you're applying, and
Mm.
also your attitude towards work. So, um, I would say, just ano lang, be honest and upfront during the interview. Para in terms of the interviewer's expectations and your expectations are aligned. Kasi eventually, if um, let's say you'll be able to get the role and eventually hindi pala yun yung fit for your preferences, sayang lang din. And in terms of
Mhm.
exams, usually the assessments that we have are interviews only for now. So wala naman siya pang parang written exam ang nangyayari.
So, kailangan ma-ace niya lang talaga yung interview, yun yung paghandaan niya.
Yes, yes.
So, in terms medyo related sa question naman ni Jehan in terms of preparation. So, what do you think are the things to prepare pag job interview na?
Job interview. Um, during my job interview, before entering the room, siguro reminisce muna ako ng nagawa ko nung college because of course yung questions or line of questioning would be uh, related to your college experience since you haven't
Mhm.
had any work experience yet. Um, best to try to reflect kung ano yung mga na-achieve mo during college that are related or that could be an asset to the company that you're applying.
Mhm. Thank you. If I may share also, siguro kapag magpapa-job interview, it's also good to get to know the company or yung
Yeah.
employer na ina-applyan mo. Baka may Google naman, so GMG, Google mo girl,
Yes.
pwede nating mahanap. Meron tayong mga descriptions of those companies in the Google. You can also use Prospol Philippines as a site to get to know employers. May profile yung mga employers natin doon. Malalaman niyo yung culture, baka hindi mo pala gusto yung culture na meron sila, baka hindi mo pala gusto yung location. So those things are available for you. So I think magandang paghandaan din yung part na yun.
Yes. Mm-mm.
Ayan. So thank you daw sa tips ni Sir Jonathan. Another probably request is the best personal advice in looking for the right job. Since you've mentioned kanina mga very flexible career path, diba, practicality, ganyan. Any personal advice?
Personal advice. Um, hmm. Well, it's actually a good thing that job boards such as Prospel and others are providing these talks or providing like yung day in a life ng mga um, activities because it also provides an idea to the students or the fresh graduates kung ano ba talaga yung itsura ng or kung ano ba talaga yung mangyayari um, sa workplace. So I would suggest sa YouTube kasi madami na ding nagpo-provide ng vlogs or ng mga videos kung ano ba talaga yung ginagawa nila like in a day in the life talaga. So one thing that you could do is ayun, try to um, watch those videos or even try to um, widen your network. Tanong-tanong ka din kung ano yung ginagawa nila for this specific job and check mo kung yun talaga yung appropriate for your preferences. Jobs, job boards, and other platforms. Kasi it's really trial and error. But if mas gusto mo mas efficient yung gagawin mong job hunting, ayun, tap mo yung mga pwedeng matap na uh, materials online.
Mhm. Ideally, Jonathan, mga gaano karaming application, yung masasuggest mo gaano karaming application yung kailangan nilang isubmit? Kasi dapat ba isa lang tapos pray and hope na makuha niya
Well,
ako, ganyan?
I would say as much as you want or as much as you can. Basta just make sure that the jobs that you're applying for is really something that you want or something na ready ka. Kasi may iba na nagki-click lang ng apply sa mga job boards, even
Mm.
hindi naman talaga nila alam kung ano yung ina-applyan nila. So, kapag na-interview, parang they're caught unprepared na parang, "Ano nga ba yung in-applyan ko? Anong company nga ba 'to?" So, hindi na
Mm.
siya magandang impression sa mga employers eventually.
Mm.
So, as
That
much as
makes
you can.
sense. Thank you. Yes. So, curious to know if you have any essential tools that we can use as we prepare for job hunting. Meron ka bang mga, like, apart from probably Prospel as a platform, any essential tools?
Well, aside from job boards in general, um, I would suggest to create a LinkedIn, yung mga professional, yung profile sa professional platforms kasi
Mm.
even if you're just still studying or hindi pa or just graduated, you could already create your network there. Parang, let's say, if you are a computer science graduate, you could look up software developers or professionals in general na pwede mong gawing network and eventually siguro ask questions or try to uh, or start a relationship with them. So,
Mm.
LinkedIn, and siguro if ever that you're into um, or if yung program mo would be on multimedia or more on that uh, industry. There are di lang ako specific, but there are a lot of websites kung saan puwede kang mag-save ng portfolio and eventually puwede mo 'yun ibigay sa mga employers para ma-review nila kung ano yung mga naging outputs mo na. So, mga gano'n.
Mm. Yep. Thank you. So, yung mga previous works nila, magiging parang reference, no?
Hello, sorry nawala ako.
Ayun, bumalik. Parang sinasabi mo na yung mga previous works nila could be a reference as well
Yes,
sa
yes.
skill set that they have. And in connection with the reference, you've mentioned earlier na part of preparation is to have character references. Meron ka bang mga suggested like tips kung sino yung dapat ilagay mo sa
Mm,
character reference, especially pag fresh graduate? Would it
mm.
be helpful to put in your professor, the president of your club, yung mga ganun ba?
Well, siguro first thing to consider is if you were able to work together with the person already or kung uh, if professor siya, if naturuan ka na ba niya or na-handle ka na niya
Hmm.
before. Kasi, those people are the most ideal ones kasi sila yung naka-experience kung ano yung capacity mo or kung ano yung competency mo, with not just with the position that you're applying for, but your overall character. So, kung maghahanap kayo, just make sure na, um, the people really know you well.
Mhm. Right. So for those na nagkaroon ng internships, 'di ba merong mga short-term internships lang o kaya part-time jobs, do you think it's good to also include them as a character reference for future? I know we'll keep it muna until asked, but dapat ba, pwede ba yun na ilagay yun?
Puwede naman as long as it's, relevant to the position that you're
Mhm.
applying. Kasi sila yung makakapag-attest na, "Eto kaya mo talaga 'to, that you're, physically, mentally capable to do the work."
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Another question that was asked is, any tips para sa mga nahihirapan mag-adjust sa life after college, especially now,
Yeah.
medyo pandemic era, ganyan.
I would suggest, uh, take it one step at a time or 'wag mo siyang madaliin na dapat kasi 'pag enter mo ng industry, you already may mga ka-work ka na tenured na talaga, eh, na
Mm.
already used to working. Pero when you come in as a fresh graduate, don't, feel pressured that much kasi, you're still getting used to it. So, take it one step at a time. learn a thing or two per day. Tapos try to ano lang, be consistent na um, may natututunan ka on a daily basis. Kasi
Mhm.
eventually, you'll just realize na, ayun, fully adjust na pala ako. So don't feel pressured, ano lang, wag, well, don't feel pressured is siguro, wag masyadong pansinin yung pressure na makapag-adjust right away. Accept na lang na talagang yun, bago ka pa dun sa industry and you're just adjusting or you're still learning. So, ayun, try to find ways on how you can help the team and learn a thing or two on a daily basis.
Ang ganda nung ano, take one step at a time. Kasi merong time naman for everything. So, chill lang, kalma lang tayo, ganyan. I guess the next question is, name one thing na sana ginawa mo before as a fresh graduate sa job hunting mo.
Ano ba? Um,
Pagka-graduate mo ba, sorry, pagka-graduate mo ba, ginusto mo na talagang maging talent acquisition specialist or consultant?
well, not specifically the role, pero I wanted to ano to uh, apply for work already after graduation.
Hmm.
So, at that time kasi fresh graduate, so hindi ko pa talaga alam kung ano yung well, yun din yung problema ko, hindi ko pa talaga alam kung saan ako pupunta or kung ano yung magiging next steps ko. So, may
Oo.
pinresent na opportunity, then I grabbed it. And then eventually, yun, with what I'm doing now, natutunan ko siya and I really appreciate kung ano yung ginagawa ko. Um,
Hmm.
yun, buti na lang, supportive yung team. And ayun, siguro to answer the question, siguro, pahinga. Pahinga. Siguro kasi after graduation hanap talaga
Sabak
ng
agad,
job.
gano'n.
Oo,
Oo.
sabak agad. Pero if I will be given a chance or kung ano yung mache-change ko, siguro magpapahinga muna ako ng a month, gano'n, before looking.
Hmm.
Pero turned out well naman. So, wala pa akong major regrets as of the moment.
That's good to hear. That's good for IBM as well. Only shows that it's a good company to stay in. So yeah. Um, Now I think this question is more of your experience as a talent acquisition. No? What's the one thing na natutunan mo as a talent acquisition partner ngayon na sana alam mo na nung fresh graduate ka pa lang?
Actually, madami. Pero the main thing is like this, yung mga public speaking na hindi ko naman talaga ginagawa before. Since I was a psychology major, what we usually do is to listen. Listen and understand
Right.
people. Pero eventually, with what I'm doing now, especially dito sa campus function, may mga tulad nito, job fairs, events, career talks na uh, I'm a part of. So siguro, ano ba? Yun, I would siguro, it's a good thing na naka-experience na ako ng ganitong parang public speaking or uh, events na ganito during college para ngayon hindi na ganun ka uh, sort of big adjustment for me. Kasi in reality, hindi talaga ako uh, palasalita. With everything.
Okay lang, medyo kalma ka, kalmang tao ka. And I think that depende kasi yun sa line of work mo, 'di ba? So,
Yes, yes,
and it's good because as you mentioned earlier, psychology major ka, masanay kang nakikinig, but you're widening your skill as well.
yes,
So,
yes.
at this time, no, mayroong nadagdag na bagong skill set for you. And good thing yon. So, siguro yung question ko is, in the past, may mga na-interview ka na ba na fresh graduate? And ano yung common mistake nila? I mean, opportunity na sana iba yung ginawa mo, sana ganyan.
Hmm,
Sa mga na-interview mo lang naman.
Siguro I think I was able to speak with applicants kasi that yun nga, yung plan nila is very lang, linear lang na it's either
Mm.
eto or hindi. If let's say kung
Hmm.
di ko 'to makukuhang role na 'to, then
Hindi na ako papasok.
I'll just look for other companies, gano'n. So, kasi if you're starting, in the industry, ano, hindi talaga siya, uh, it won't always go according to plan. So, it's,
Hmm.
wala sila talagang other plans. It's either yun or hindi. So,
Hmm.
siguro, um, sorry, what's the question again? Medyo naano ako.
Yung yung common na mistake ng mga applicants whenever
Ayun.
they're
Ayun,
applying.
wala masyadong flexibility in terms of,
Mm.
uh, their plans kasi
Mm.
ayun nga, well depende din naman siguro talaga sa kanila, sa priorities nila yun and, sa capability nila. Pero I think, in general, not just for fresh grad.
And you're back.
Ayun, nawala ulit, sorry.
Ayan. Okay lang.
Ayun
Naka-work from
ano,
home siya today.
yes. Ayun, repeat ko na lang. So, not
Mm.
only for fresh graduates but for people in general, um, it's a good ano pa din, it's a good thing to, remain flexible or to stay flexible. Flexible enough to ano lang, to be able to embrace change, embrace improvements, gano'n. Because yung change naman it's not only, sideways, pero puwede din siyang, uh, upwards or so ayun.
Mm.
I think yun yung isa sa mga di naman wrong, pero something to be improved sa mga fresh graduates na nakausap.
Yeah. I think that also answers this question, no? Any advice sa mga fresh grads na nagpe-prepare for job hunting? So, maging flexible lang with their career plans.
Yeah.
In terms of flexibility, paano nyo nalalaman na flexible si candidate? Is it a no when for a certain question, ganun?
Um, Hindi naman, it's ano, we ask them if they are flexible or if they are, willing to consider, other skills or
Mm.
other specializations in the future kasi, well yun ano lang, talagang straight to the point na question. If they are, willing or if they are flexible then ayun, ma-identify na namin agad.
Mm. Interesting. Kasi usually, di ba, when you ask them, are you flexible? If I'm a candidate, sasagutin ko yes, di ba? Kasi gusto kong
Mm,
makuha yung job.
mm.
So, curious to know, are there other methods that you use or questions you ask that determines flexibility of a person?
Well, from experience it actually depends on how you ano, how you throw them questions. Um
Mm.
Malalaman namin siya if we ask it situational questions in terms of kung ano yung
Mm.
what will you do if, parang mga gano'n. So dun namin makikita if ano talaga sila, willing sila, or they're like they've shown evidence na flexible sila in terms of their work, in terms of the people that they're working with, mga gano'n.
Mm.
No specific, pero ano lang, yung no specific question but it's more on how you how you ask,
How they respond.
how they respond.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Very insightful yun. Now, siguro, one of the last few questions. What is your message to college students, fresh graduates, Gen Z, or young millennials, especially those who are, preparing to apply for jobs and roles?
Siguro ano, well, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Kasi maaga pa for their careers na para
Mm.
maging cautious enough. Hindi ko alam kung yun yung tamang term, but, for them to to be sige, yun na lang, for them to be too cautious to make uh, or make a jump or ayun, basta don't be afraid to make mistakes. Kasi you
Mm.
will eventually ano uh, benefit from that.
Yan. So sa mga viewers natin, huwag matakot at huwag mahiyang magtanong. Ganyan. Siguro for those who are entering their adult life, any book recommendations para mas maging prepared pa for adult life or any content kung hindi book, meron ka bang
Content.
mm,
Uh,
content, pwedeng video, movie, series, books, ganyan.
um, hmm, I think um, yung mga same with the one that I mentioned earlier, yung mga A Day in a Life and also yung yung pinaka readily available kasi is yung video sa YouTube na uh, would
Mm.
educate you on financial literacy kasi even if let's say you're in human resources, syempre you still need to be well versed dun sa yun nga, financial literacy. And also siguro um, actually yun lang at the back of my on top of my head yun yung naiisip ko. Kasi yun yung actually binabasa ko ngayon.
Nice. That's good. Siguro sa akin more on mga YouTube videos din. And I like that yung day in the life articles, even if it's an article or a video, very helpful siya kasi relevant siya sa mga students. They can relate to it as they want to know more about a certain company or a certain role.
Yes, and it's free. Accessible siya
Mm,
via internet. So,
yeah,
ayun yung
digital
pinaka-ano.
age.
Yes,
Yeah, so
YouTube.
yun naman talaga yung mga gusto natin. And siguro, in terms of your role as a talent acquisition consultant or sa campus recruitment, what's the best part of your role? Like, what do you like about it the most? Ganyan.
Um, well, hindi siya, it's not, what I do is not always the same. I'm not sure if
Mm.
it makes sense. Pero iba-iba yung ginagawa ko on a daily basis. So, for today, I might be doing this career talk or campus talk. But most probably by tomorrow, I'll be processing candidates for their applications. And then eventually, um, we'll be planning for another event. Tapos ganyan. Hindi siya parang sort of routinary yung work na ginagawa ko. So,
Mm.
yun yung one of the good things na ah, kasama dun sa work ko.
Yun. That's good to hear. Curious lang, baka meron tayong mga viewers who want to follow the same path as yours. At least they would have an idea of what it's like to work as a talent acquisition. And in IBM, I guess there's also other opportunities na baka relevant sa mga viewers natin ngayon. Ayun. So, really insightful session, Jonathan. Thank you for that presentation and for answering a lot of the questions we have asked you. Appreciate your time today, and especially dun sa mga nanonood at this moment. If you still have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat box or comment in the YouTube video or Facebook Live para Jonathan can view it and ask those questions. Next week, our session would be about the do's and don'ts to stand out in a job interview. And feel free to register at Prospol PH or Prospol Philippines for more sessions. So, ayun. Sobrang dami kong natutunan even if I have been working, and I can share this session with students that I know of, mga fresh graduates, and I'm pretty sure they will be excited to watch this session and also learn about the presentation that you gave earlier, Jonathan.
Thank you, thank you.
Yep, thank you. So yun. So for those who are still watching, feel free to set up your profile in Prospol Philippines. And what what would happen is that we can share job opportunities and events like this through your email. And also, we will be able to share an e-certificate for those who have attended this session. And last but not the least, IBM has job opportunities. So feel free to jump into their profile. We're sharing the link in the chat box. So feel free to view their profile. They have a lot of opportunities available at the moment. Last time I checked, parang nasa 7 yung job opportunities nila. So please feel free to check those and apply what you have learned from Jonathan today. So ayun. Again, we're excited to see you in the next session before we finally end. Gusto lang namin magpasalamat kay Jonathan, IBM, and for those who have stayed with us until the end. So next week, hopefully, Rowan will be back to host this session. And follow us and stay tuned on our social media channels for updates. So kita-kits ulit next Thursday. Bye, everyone!